Over the last few years, I've built an investment portfolio that has averaged nearly 7 times higher returns than the average retail investor. And it's allowed me to retire at 33, travel the world, and live a life of freedom. But I'm not some genius stock picker like Warren Buffett. I still have no idea what those green, red bar thingies mean on stock charts. No, what I do have is a very rare access to some of the world's wealthiest investors that have become my friends since selling my startup a few years ago. And I've been constantly asking them one question: where should I be investing? How do I invest? How do I learn how to invest? And over the years, they have pointed me to dozens and dozens of books. Now in this video, I want to break down these 7 most important books that they recommended me, the ones that have literally made me millions of dollars over the last few years. So the first book I would recommend if you want to learn how to invest, how to get more from your money, is a book that I actually have right here. It's called Unshakable by Tony Robbins. This is my sealed, signed copy. I have also read the book, but I have this nice copy. It was gifted to me, not by Tony Robbins, whose name is right here, but by his co-author, Peter Mallouk. And Peter Mallouk manages $100 billion for investors. So he knows a thing or two about investing. What I love about this book is Tony previously wrote this book called Money Master the Game, and it was like this tomb of investing knowledge. It was almost 700 pages, and he wrote it by interviewing 50 of the world's greatest investors and finding out what did they do, how did they invest, and trying to condense that knowledge. The problem with Money Master the Game is it's 700 pages, and because he interviewed so many different experts, one expert will say buy bonds, the other expert will say buy gold, buy commodities. It's a bit of a menu approach, can be hard to follow as a beginner. Take that in contrast to the book here, Unshakable. What Unshakable does is it lays out a very straightforward path on how you should actually invest. It teaches you all the basics you need to know, such as should you buy individual stocks, should you buy mutual funds, should you buy index funds, should you think about fees, how do you pick the right index funds to invest in, what are bad ones, what are good ones, what does it all look like? It's a very thorough introduction into the world of investing. And of course, because it's Tony Robbins, what I also like about the book is it teaches you lessons on the emotional side of investing. You see, investing isn't that complicated. Most people actually know they should buy index funds. They know they should stick in it for the long run. It's their psychology that gets in the way. They sell when the market crashes, and then they buy again when it's going up. It's called buying high, selling low. It's these little small things that actually often eat at people's returns. In the opening of this video, I mentioned that I get 7 times higher returns than the average retail investor. Well, spoiler alert, the average retail investor only gets a 1.9% return. And this is like astonishing because you could literally just buy the S&P 500 and get a 6 to 8% return every year on average. People freak out. It's their psychology that gets in the way. So this book will not only lay the groundwork for how to invest, it'll lay the groundwork for you to be a good investor. So if you only wanted to read one book and just say, listen, I'm gonna read this, I'm gonna figure it out, I'm done, this is your book. Unshakable by Tony Robbins, co-author Peter Mallouk. It will be your guide. And for most people, this is honestly probably all you need. But let's go a little deeper and find out how you can even get more returns for your money. So the second book I'd really recommend if you want to learn how to invest is called The 5 Mistakes Every Investor Makes and How to Avoid Them. It's by Peter Mallouk, the same guy who co-authored Unshakable. Now I have to confess, I have this amazing, awesome signed copy of this book, but it's at my other house. So I'm sorry I can't pull it up for this video. You'll just have to take my word for it. I have read it. It's an amazing book. And what I really like about this book is a few things. First, Peter Mallouk is the real deal. He manages over $100 billion for his company called Creative Planning. And they do this for clients all over the world. So Peter has real skin in the game here. He's not a professor just sort of, saying this is what our studies say, this is, what we think you should do. He's putting his money on the line. His entire livelihood is built around helping people invest well. And what I love about this book is it gives you more clarity on why you should be making investment decisions. See, if you're like me, when someone recommends something, I don't want to just take the recommendation and say, okay, let me just go take all my money and do what you told me to do. I want to know why. I want to know what is the data say behind that decision. Why should I be listening to you? Show me the proof. So this book is filled with amazing charts and data showing, stock returns, indexes, top companies, low companies for hundreds of years. And he really takes the data and presents very clearly why you should avoid these 5 mistakes and how the 5 mistakes will cost you. Some of the mistakes are things like timing the market. The news says the market's at an all-time high, I shouldn't buy now. Or, everything's tanking, I shouldn't buy the markets now, the news is saying we're gonna go down 20% more. He really unpacks, hey, market timing doesn't work. And don't take, my word for it, don't take Peter's words for it. Here's 200 years of data and different simulations. What if you tried to time the market? What if you were that lucky investor that got it right every time? How would your returns actually change versus doing maybe what's called lump sum investing, where you just put it in and ride the waves? So he really unpacks and uncovers different strategies and really tests, like, here's this sort of theory that a lot of people say works. Does it work? What mistakes do investors make that actually cost them money? If you're like me and you just want to know deep in your soul that you're doing the right thing, that you're not constantly questioning your investment decisions, highly recommend The 5 Mistakes Every Investor Makes and How to Avoid Them by Peter Mallouk. It is a fantastic, fantastic book. And I'm not just saying that because Peter's a friend. I became his friend because his stuff is so amazing. Now, the third book I would recommend, it takes this in a bit of a different direction. It's called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And it is just one of the best books I have read on this journey of money. You see, whether or not you know it, you grew up with certain money beliefs, certain money habits, certain money patterns. And there is a very good chance that the money habits, the money beliefs, the money patterns that you inherited from your parents, from your surroundings, from different things that you learned in school may not actually be serving you best. Some of them are things that you don't even realize are driving your life. And whether you like it or not, money drives so much of our modern lives. It's how we get to work. It's how we see friends. You want to hang out with a friend. You go out to eat, you go to that bar. All of these are ultimately money decisions. The way that you interact with money often becomes the way that you can interact with your family, with your friends, with this world. And what this book really helped me understand is I didn't get to choose my money beliefs. In fact, there is a massive multi-trillion-dollar conspiracy in marketing and advertising that is literally designed to change your money beliefs, to make you think you need that new iPhone, you need that new purse, you need that new car, when in fact, your iPhone, purse, and car that you already have work just fine. And what really blew my mind is this is a modern phenomenon. Morgan goes back through hundreds of years of data and shows that consumerism and the way that we think about money drastically changed in the 1950s and has never reset. It's only gotten more and more extreme. And so, unpacking these different things about how we think about money, the way that we spend money, the way that society has programmed us to actually think and spend our money is so valuable for you to learn as an investor, because ultimately, what are you making the money for? Why do you want all this money? Why do you even want to invest? You need to learn how to enjoy it, how to spend it, and how to actually save the money and put it into these investment portfolios. You can learn the best investment strategy, but if you don't have a way to actually fill that machine to invest into your portfolio, you're not going to have much money. This book is a must read for anyone that wants to actually understand why do they think the way they think, how should they invest their money, how should they spend their money. Once you do actually make money, you do need to have a conscious spending plan so you can get the most of it. Don't fall into the trap of automatically spending your money on things that don't make you happy, to impress people that you don't like, all those sort of stereotypes. You want to have a life that's fulfilling, that's rich. This book will teach you how to do that. Now, this next book was recommended to me by one of the investors that actually sat on the board of my last company. They manage $1.7 billion. They have been down this wealth journey far longer than I have. So when I sold the company, I went to them and I said, hey, I have all this money now. What should I do? How do I invest it? And he said, listen, this is the book you need to read. It's called Unconventional Success by David Swensen. And before I introduce the book, let me introduce the man behind the book, David Swensen. David Swensen is a legend in the investing community. For decades, he ran what's known as the Yale Endowment Fund, which is basically, Yale is a school that has a bunch of money and they take it literally billions of dollars and have built an investment management company around that billions of dollars that invests the money. By investing this massive, massive portfolio, what the Yale School can do is they literally earn money from the portfolio to help improve the school, reduce tuition costs, and so on. And so managing this endowment is one of the primary economic drivers of Yale University. But what makes David so interesting is most endowments kind of suck as investors. They get below market returns. Many of them have gone bankrupt. They've invested in frauds and things like that. But the Yale endowment has consistently outperformed every other endowment on the planet for decades. And it's all been run by David Swensen. He recently passed away, but his writing and his thoughts on investing changed the landscape. Basically all endowments now, Harvard, Stanford, you name it, they all try to follow this Yale investment model. So I give you that introduction because you need to understand the legend that David is and how it applies to your life. He wrote this book based on all of his experience managing billions of dollars with one simple question. How can I distill that knowledge? How can I take what I have learned and apply it to individual investors, i.e. you? You're probably not running an endowment. You're not running a 10, 20, $30 billion fund. But what you are is investing money that you need, that you rely on. The same way the endowment needs its money, you need your money to grow and to fulfill your life. Because of David's privilege in the financial industry, he's able to actually unpack all the different financial instruments that you might find. Stocks, bonds, ETFs, treasuries, and he walks through how he thinks about each investment type and sort of the pros and cons of each and what you should be looking out for as an individual investor. Of all the books, this book goes the deepest into explaining the pitfalls and the traps that the financial industry can use to kind of cheat you out of your returns. You see, oftentimes when you're managing your money or you're working with an investment manager, they will present charts to you that show you amazing returns, that show you all this good stuff, but behind the scenes, they are taking more money than you're even making. This stuff is really slimy. It's not, easily discoverable. It's hidden deep in thousands of pages of legal disclosures. And as an individual investor, going up against these titans of industry trying to make money investing, you are at a massive disadvantage. David Swensen levels the playing field in this book. He shows you how to actually make sure that you're getting the most for your money, that you're investing in the right things, that you're staying away from conflicts of interest and other things that can really lead you astray. And he wraps it all up with a very neat and straightforward portfolio recommendation for you as an individual investor. And I think that's probably one of the most valuable things from this book is it's not just a portfolio recommendation. Like, you can go Google, how should you invest? You can go look up portfolios, but how do you know if one portfolio is better than the other? How do you know if it fits your goals? David Swensen really unpacks all the nuances around individual investing, and that's why I like this book so much. Now, if that sounds good, but you want to take it even a step further, the book that I'd recommend if you really want to get a deep dive into the top level of investing, the world-class investors and how they think, is called Pioneering Portfolio Management by David Swensen. And this book takes David Swensen's experience running the Yale Foundation, generating these market-beating returns that no one can match, and teaches how to do it for other endowments. What he teaches is these principles, these concepts on how to make your money last forever and the failures endowments have had along the way. Before David Swensen wrote this book and sort of taught the industry how to invest, endowments were such crappy investors, they would invest in these massive scams and lose all their money. By seeing how investing is done at the top level, how David Swensen is making multi-billion-dollar investing decisions, there is no book I have ever read that unpacks so much detail, so much understanding of markets, of inflation, of timing, of geographies as this book. Some of the concepts may not apply to everything you're doing, but they're important to learn. One of the most important lessons is building what David calls an investment policy. What an investment policy allows you to do is you're not going in, every day looking at the stock market, looking at your portfolio and saying, how should I invest? Should I invest in this? My friend said it's a hot tip. No, you have a policy with set guidelines, set rules in place so that when you get an investment opportunity, when you get a windfall, when you get more cash, you say, listen, I'm just gonna plug this into my policy that I already have. So you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not trying to come up with new ideas. You have a policy in place that is backed by data, backed by science, and you know it's going to give the results that you're looking for. On top of that, he also teaches you how to think about a spending policy. Listen, at some point you will retire. You're gonna have to spend down your portfolio. This book teaches you how to think about that. How much can you withdraw each year? What's a safe level? What's an unsafe level? Are there maybe algorithms that you could come up with to retain that cash for life? And so if you really want to get a masterclass in how billions of dollars are invested and how you can apply some of those same principles, check out Pioneering Portfolio Management by David Swensen. Now, the next book I'd recommend takes us on a bit of a U-turn, and we're going to go back to something a little more playful, a little more fun, a little more entertaining than these sort of deep books I've been going over. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. And this is a classic book written almost 100 years ago. It's not actually an investing book. It's not really a how-to guide. It is a fable of a man that became the richest man in Babylon. And it talks about how he assembled his lessons. The basic idea is that in this book, he is poor but wants to become wealthier. And so he assembles this sort of like cabinet of other men, and they start trying to understand, like, how can we actually become wealthy? It's like a mastermind group, and they're thinking about, how can we generate more luck in our investing life? What are the common principles that people have when they generate wealth? What are the things that they do that we can learn from it? One of the cute things that they come up with are these 7 cures for a lean purse. It's this very fun, very playful book, but underneath this fun story, underneath this, very easy to read book, are key principles, key lessons that still apply today. You know, things like how much should you save? It's 10% is what they recommend. How should you think about spending? How do you think about investing? It just walks you through all these, really important lessons around finance in a very fun way. It's also a great read for all ages. So if it's something you have kids or, young people that you mentor, this is a great book to give to them as a sort of stepping stone, tiptoe into the world of personal finance. It's just a fun, awesome book. I recommend it even if you've gone through my list, you've read, the books on how to manage tens of billions of dollars. Still read this book. It's a short read, it's a fun read, it'll teach you so much. And the final book I would recommend if you want to learn how to invest your money, manage your money, and get the most out of life is a book called Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. Now, I've had the pleasure to meet Bill Perkins in real life. This is me hanging out with him. In fact, the picture behind us is the painting that he bought. I think it was for like $20 or $30 million just a few weeks before. He is a guy that walks the walk and talks the talk that he teaches in this book. And I can tell you, after spending a few hours hanging out with him and talking about the way he actually lives his life, it is true to this book. This isn't a book that he wrote for someone else. It's a book that he kind of wrote for himself, but I have benefited so much from. And among my friend circles of multimillionaires or billionaires, this is probably the #1 most recommended book that they would have. It's also the book that ultimately led me to leave my last role, leaving millions of dollars on the table, and go pursue an actual meaningful life. Because what this book does is it breaks our stereotypes and our conventional wisdom around how we should be investing and how we live our money. You see, the conventional wisdom, the thing that you will get shoved down your throat by the news, by the media, by just your teachers, is go get a stable job, work a 9 to 5 till 65 years old, and then when you retire, you can do all these things you've dreamed of. You can travel the world, you can see all the sights, you'll have this great investment portfolio. But that's a load of crap. What Bill Perkins painfully unpacks is that when you are 65, when you are 70, you will have missed out on the chance to actually do these things. And you won't be retiring on this fat stack of cash that will allow you to travel the world and live this amazing life because you're just too old. You don't have the energy, you don't have the desire, you don't have the physical capability to go backpacking in Europe for 3 months. So what Bill Perkins unpacks is you don't retire on cash, you retire on what he calls memory dividends. Memory dividends are the experiences that you lived up to your retirement age, where you can now sort of, sit back on the porch and relive those things. Remember that trip that you took to the Appalachian Mountains when you were 27, not when you were 77. Remember that time you went backpacking through Europe. These are the things that you want to do while you are physically able. So like the book suggests, what you don't want to do is slowly save up your money until 65 and then slowly spend it down. No, you want to actually spend your money through your years, in your 20s, in your 30s, so that you almost literally die with zero. One of the recommendations in the book is do a life expectancy calculator. See when you are expected to die, and then optimize to try to actually literally spend down to that point so that when you pass away, you don't have many possessions. You don't have much assets because you spent it living a life well lived. Now, there's lots of caveats to this. What if you have children? How do you pass things along to them? What if you run out of money? How do you prevent running out of money? And Bill has very thoughtfully given you strategies and ideas and ways to actually combat this. But as someone who has read this book and truly changed their life because of it, it's something you should absolutely read. Probably my favorite thing from this book that I'll leave you with is creating a bucket list of all the experiences you want to do and then bucketing them into different ages of life. So let's say you want to go on a safari to Africa. Okay, great. When is the ideal stage in life to do that? Is it in your 20s? Is it in your 30s, in your 70s, in your 80s? Well, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. Probably not in your 80s, maybe in your late 20s, and your 30s, even 40s. As you're living your life, what you can do is you can start plotting the different things that you want to do in each either 5 or 10-year bracket, and then you can start achieving those things. You can start building these memory dividends that you will retire on later in life. This is now almost exactly how I live my life. We have multiple homes around the world. We spend a few months in Europe, a few months in Asia, and then we travel the rest. This crazy lifestyle is something that me and my wife can do now. I'm 33, she's 30. We're not gonna wanna do it when we're 70. We don't wanna have multiple homes, always be living out of a suitcase, out of a plane. We're living this life. We are building these memory dividends that we will retire on. So if you wanna actually get the most out of your investments and enjoy life, check out Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. It is an amazing book that will really change your thinking. Now, if this video has inspired you or made you want to learn more about investing or even see how I retired, I just filmed a video called How I Retired at 33. I'll put the link over here. Click that. I'm going to walk you through everything I did, how I built my portfolio, and ultimately how I live my life. So just click the link. I'll see you there.